all these other atheists I know, they were raised Christians, and they had that opportunity, and they chose that wasn't for them, that they didn't believe in that. So they left, and I didn't have that opportunity. So I've had this idea that I want to go to church at some point, but, that in itself probably wouldn't motivate me, but I came up with this idea, maybe if I put it on eBay, and not really for the money, because I didn't think anyone was going to bid, period. But I figured, if I could document it and have people comment on it, that would interest me, and getting their reactions to it. And so I figured, why don't I put it up on eBay, see what happens from there, and this whole thing just took off from there.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the churches you've been to.
Sure.
So you went to a church, the closest one to where you lived, which was where we went the first time, to Old St. Patrick's?
Yeah, it's a Catholic church.
Old St. Peter's or St. Patrick's?
St. Patrick's.
Yeah.
Old, historic, it survived the Chicago fire, old Catholic church.
And what was your take on that experience?
My take on that one, that was the first one that I went to, and, it was, I guess it's Catholicism in general from what I've heard, but very ritualistic. And, there were about 5 minutes when I was completely tuned into the pastor, and that was when he was sharing a personal story about a struggle he had gone through and how he overcame it with the help of God. And hey, that drew me in. I was listening. I felt for him. And then as soon as he finished, he's like, now let's do communion and back into script mode,
Yep.
He lost that personal connection, and now it's sticking to the script, and here's what I do every time. And I believe he commented it, I don't know if that was him or someone else. He commented on it saying, my comments on the blog, it's nothing I haven't heard 100 times before.
He's sort of dismissive of you.
Right.
Actually. So then we sent you to Willow Creek.
Yeah.
One of the certainly the most famous megachurch in the United States. And
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like the first mega church.
Okay.
Maybe not technically, but Bill Hybels has led it. He's very well known. They have a whole association of churches that follow them. There's Willow Creek churches.
Okay.
So if you go to any city in the United States and you want to find a church, you look up, Willow Creek. You Google Willow Creek, and you'll find a church that does the Willow Creek thing. That's how that's how pervasive they are. Okay, so what was your experience there?
So that was a different experience. I didn't expect that, and incidentally, I guess I could say this now. That was a church I went to with the Wall Street Journal reporter,
right.
And so she had also never been to a church like that.
Right.
So we both kind of were talking through the experience. But the first thing we saw, we walk in or we drive in there, we're just looking around. We're on the road and we have our directions. We're like, at some point we have to make a left turn. I hope we can find it and we don't miss it. Oh, it's like Willow Creek Church Drive or something. We pull into it and it's a little city. Yeah. And the parking lot was bigger than anything I've ever seen. And, we walk in, there's an escalator in the church, never seen that before. But in terms of the actual sermon, what I liked about the sermon is that for me, and what I've heard is, that night was an actual Bible study night.
Right, and the pastor was Pastor Randy
Frazee.
Yeah,
as opposed to a Sunday morning, we want new people to come into our church meeting. I loved Randy Frazee, and it was because, he was telling stories of, how his faith got him through rough times, relating it to the Bible the whole time, but that didn't seem to be the focus. The focus was on how this is relevant, And, the music was great, and the music's been great at all the churches.
What was it about it was there anything about it that wasn't appealing to you, or?
Not at that service.
Okay.
What was unappealing, if anything, I was looking through the programs and the things to see, what else was going on at the church. Right. A couple things that struck me is how much money they took in. It just stood out. It's like...
Did they have the numbers there in the print?
They had the numbers in the program.
What kind of numbers were they?
Over $400,000 for the week.
Yeah, right.
That was astounding to me.
Why did that surprise you? It's like a business. Why
I thought churches always needed money.
Okay.
And that's why they keep asking, and clearly they have it. I mean, I don't know. That's just...
Okay.
Okay.
I believe you said, if you were to consider going to church, you would probably go somewhere like that.
Yeah, they connected with me more. Yeah. I could see myself, more there than a ritualistic place, more there than a place that overanalyzes every detail.
How did you become as open-minded as you are?
Well, thanks for calling me open-minded. Because I'm exposed to a lot of things.
What is it, though? A lot of people are not as curious, and they wouldn't be as sort of positive about people they disagree with?
I think, and this is also what I've gathered from most of the atheists I know, since most of us were raised religiously, we've become very good at asking questions.
Really?
Yeah, because, you know, the religious dogma that you're brought up with, I mean, the reason you became an atheist, that all of us that I know became an atheist, is because you start questioning those beliefs. How do we know that's true?
Right.
That didn't really happen.
But you ask questions that are not only to set people up. You ask questions because you seem to be genuinely interested.
Oh yeah, I want to know how people are coming to their beliefs, how they know this stuff. And you know, in the auction I said also, if you can give me these answers, I have nothing to argue with. Then I have to convert, right?
Yeah. Hemant, you actually didn't become an atheist out of Christian perspective, but out of the Jain religion.
Right. I wasn't raised Christian. I was raised in a religion called Jainism.
Yep.
And Jainism has this, you know.
That's Jainism, not Jain as in Dick and Jane.
Right. Jain. But the basic tenets of Jainism include things like nonviolence, non-possessiveness, things like that. Who's going to disagree with that, right? And in fact, I follow as much of that as I can. Realistically, you know, I try to follow those guidelines, just like, you know, Christians follow the Ten Commandments as much as they can.
We
try. And that's the idea. But, you know, where I differ from Jainism and why I stopped calling myself a Jain and call myself an atheist is because, you know, they do believe that people can attain this supernatural nirvana presence, that there is a heaven and a hell and things like that.
So I want to get back to, you recently visited a very historic church in the evangelical world called the Moody Bible Church. It was founded by Dwight L. Moody in the early 1900s, late 1800s. And you went there for a prayer meeting. Now, as a Christian, I know prayer meetings are generally like, it'd be like me going to a Jain temple on a night when, you know, it's really not a public deal. But it's technically open. Maybe. Like a holy night, if the doors are open, I could wander in, but I really wouldn't get it, right? And I knew that, and I think something that people should understand is I don't tell you the background in these places a lot. I give you a general background. The people don't know you're coming. And in this particular case, I sent you there knowing you'd be going to a prayer meeting, which is typically a closed meeting in spirit, if not technically. The doors are open. Anybody could have wandered in, right? What was your experience there when you went to that prayer meeting?
A little awkward. I didn't actually write this up in the blog, but one of the things I listened is, you know, early on when they started the service, I heard the word prayer a lot. I know it's a prayer service, but I heard the word prayer and pray a lot, so I started keeping track of it. The number was over 140, I think, by the time, you know, in the span of an hour, but it's just like everything. Let's pray for this. Let's pray for this. Let's pray for this.
That's a prayer meeting, so why would that be unusual?
The reason that was strange to me, in a sense, I guess, is because, you know, I looked at their program. They had a lot of prayer requests that people had called a hotline or something for prayer requests, and they printed those up. And some of the prayer requests just seemed like it's something that you could take care of yourself, I guess.
They're just inane. Okay.
I can understand, you know, my wife is sick. Can please pray for her to get better.
Okay.
Or, you know, I went through this hard traumatic incident. Please pray that I get through it. But some people were praying, you know, pray for my neighbor's friends because they're godless. Or pray for this guy to get some wisdom. Or, you know, pray for parking space, and I've commented on that before.
You said that there was, from your perspective, it sounded as if there was people had an attitude against Muslim people. From the way you heard it. Yeah,
from the way I heard it, because, you know, they were missionaries. It was a missionary conference going on, so a lot of the missionaries had gone to, you know, North African countries, I think, or Middle Eastern countries. So they encountered a lot of Muslims, and the implication. And I understand why this is, but the implication is like these Muslim people are wrong in what they're thinking, and the only way they can be saved is through conversion to Christ. And I understand, well, sure, you're Christians. You want them to be converted to Christ. But it was just, that wasn't it. It was more, it just seems so disrespectful towards their culture and the way they do things.
How could you be a quote-unquote religion that wants people to change, join you, and still be respectful? If you were leading something like that or trying to teach people, what would you say to them about how you could hold these two things in tension?
Well, first of all, I don't think a lot of the Christian missionaries anyway know a lot about the Quran. First thing would be doing something like we're doing, dialogue. Why do they think what they think? Where are they getting their beliefs from? Because I think they're getting them from both sides, from pretty much the same place. They're getting it from a holy book that says very similar things in a lot of ways, and I know there's a lot of differences too, but that's the first thing. Understand where they're coming from. And say, you know, my religion teaches me that I should reach out to you and have, believe in this. And if they say no because, they believe in Allah and the Quran says this, you got to respect that.